But get this, there are rumors that Raven Rock is complete with streets, buildings, and even a subterranean lake. Of course, the government doesn't confirm or deny these claims. Next is the Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center in Virginia. This place is run by FEMA and is supposed to be where the US government would operate from in case of a national disaster. It's said to have underground bunkers that can house several thousand people, its own police and fire departments, and even a radio and TV studio to communicate with survivors after a catastrophe. But some whistleblowers have suggested that Mount Weather is actually the seat of a shadow government, ready to take control at a moment's notice. Okay, but here's where it gets wild. There are alleged connections between these bases. Supposedly, there's a network of high-speed maglev trains running through deep underground tunnels, connecting these domes and others across the country. Some people claim that you could travel from the East Coast to the West Coast in just a couple of hours using this secret subway system. Apparently, it's not just in the US. There are reports of similar facilities all over the world, like the Pine Gap facility in Australia. Officially, it's a joint defense space research facility, but there are theories that it goes miles deep into the Earth and houses advanced alien technology. Then I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the Dulce base in New Mexico. Now this one's not officially acknowledged, but there are the stories about a massive underground facility jointly run by humans and extraterrestrials. People talk about multiple underground levels dedicated to genetic experiments, alien technology, and even cloning facilities. Just to be clear, I'm not saying
I've come across a few of these videos online, but I always dismiss them as just kooky people, just spending a lot of time on things that are not real. But within the past few months, it's become a bit more and more difficult. It's become very difficult to argue these points.
Right. Do you what do you hear about, or what type of videos are you seeing? Like actual physical underground? Like, are you hearing about Agartha and things like that?
I don't know the details or the names, but I'm just saying that these people who have spent a lot of time researching UFOs, researching the deep state, conspiracy theories, and stuff like that, their videos are on YouTube, and I've seen them, but I never took them seriously. But I want to say, since the pandemic, and a lot in recent news, there's been a lot of things that we consider truths that are being challenged. And, suddenly these videos and these people suddenly seem very credible.
Yeah, things are adding up. Kind of. It sort of seems like these people do have an actual explanation. It's not too crazy to think about. There may be a lot of truth in what these people are doing. And they're not the people who are coming up with this, they're not just idiots, just saying crazy things from their imagination. Or they're not completely on drugs and they're just it seems like they're all saying similar things.
Right.
And when they do talk about this kind of stuff, it's very well researched. You can tell that they spent a lot of time working on this topic to come up with everything that they've come up with. So you can't, not saying that everyone's right, this is it, this is the truth, they figured it out. Right. But there may be some truth to it.
I don't think that we should dismiss them. I think that it's worth a conversation. It's worth,
it's worth thinking about and going
considering what they've spent so much time on.
Right.
Anyway, let's keep going. I feel like I'm working with Windows 95 over here.
I know. Doesn't it feel like the early 2000s?
Claims about the aliens are true, or that they come from space. That's just a theme that gets brought up a lot with these secret bases. But it could be a cover for the government possessing advanced tech far beyond the public's knowledge, or perhaps they come from breakaway civilizations. The thing is, With the boring technology that we have today, creating these vast underground networks isn't just possible, it's practical. Companies like Elon Musk's The Boring Company have shown how quickly and efficiently we can dig tunnels. And that's just the tech that they're showing us. Imagine what kind of advanced boring machines might exist in classified military projects. Now, some of you may think that this underground boring tech is some new, cutting-edge stuff, but the crazy thing is, people have been trying to build these underground machines for over a century. In 1904, there was this guy named Pyotr Raskazov, who was from Moscow, who designed what might have been the first underground self-propelled combat unit. And this is in 1904.
Whoa.
Unfortunately, his designs got lost during World War I, only to pop up later in Germany. But it shows that people were thinking about this stuff even back then. Interestingly, in the 1930s, in the Soviet Union, a guy named Treblev came up with what he called the underground boat. It was basically a capsule-shaped machine with a drill on the nose, a screw, and two pairs of jacks at the back that worked like a mole's paws. This thing could supposedly be controlled from inside or outside through a cable, and it actually worked, moving at about 10 meters per hour. Not super fast, but I mean, it was moving underground.
Wow, that's so bad.
But it gets even crazier. At the same time, in Nazi Germany, they were cooking up their own underground vehicles. The names kind of sound like they're right out of a sci-fi novel, Subterrane and Midgardschlange. The Midgardschlange was supposed to be this massive, modular, super amphibian that could move on land, underground, and even underwater. We're talking about a machine 400 to 525 meters long, with a displacement of 60,000 tons. And they allegedly tested this in 1939. Okay, so I know many...
It's, a lot of times first of all, I need to point out those images were kind of unusual. Was he describing a snake? Anyway, these machines I think have been around for a very long time. There's a lot of technology that we're not, the general public is not allowed access to.
If they were working on this in 1930, what do you think? Where do you think they are now, 100 years later?
Right. And what's interesting is that I didn't really learn about boring technology used to dig the ground that fast. I didn't know it was that advanced until the Elon Musk Boring Company.
Yeah. So I mean, if that's what people can do or have been able to do, what makes you think they haven't gone that far underground?
Maybe you're thinking this sounds like some far-fetched comic book stuff. And yeah, probably some of it is exaggerated. But the thing is, after World War II, Soviet counterintelligence found some weird, unexplained tunnels near Königsberg, along with what they thought were the remains of the Midgardschlange. So maybe there was something to these wild ideas after all. But wait, in the 1950s, there were reports of a mechanical mole being developed. And then in 1964, the Soviets unveiled something called the Battle Mole. It wasn't just a drill, we're talking about a nuclear-powered submarine. The project was so classified, it was even more secret than the Soviet nuclear program. The Battle Mole was no joke. It had a titanium body, was about 3 to 4 meters in diameter, and 25 to 35 meters long. They say it could move through solid rock at speeds between 7 and 15 kilometers per hour. That's faster than most people can run, and this thing was going through solid rock. And it gets crazy because the Soviets had some pretty terrifying plans for this machine. One of the most alarming missions they thought up was to send it off to the California coast, burrow into geologically unstable areas, and plant nuclear charges. The idea was that they could set these off to cause earthquakes, tsunamis, and other massively destructive events. It's basically a secret underground doomsday weapon. They even tested this thing in the Ural Mountains, and apparently it went through rock like a knife through butter. In 1964, during a test run, The battle mole allegedly exploded while it was underground, killing everyone on board and bringing the whole project to a screeching halt.
There are
Now, I'm
people.
not saying all this definitely happened, but the thing is, we know governments were seriously looking into this tech. And if they were thinking about this stuff back in the early 1900s, imagine what they might have now that we don't know about.
Right.
So yeah, we've been talking about these modern underground bases and secret tunnels, but the thing is, this underground tech might go back way further than we think. I'm talking 18th and 19th century stuff that'll make you wonder what's really been going on beneath our feet all this time. This is pretty mind-blowing. In 1799, this guy named George Medhurst came up with an idea to move goods through cast iron pipes using air pressure. By 1844, he built a railway station in London using pneumatics. Just think about that for a second. In 1844, when most people were still getting around by horse and carriage, these people were literally zooming through underground tubes. By the mid-1850s, they had pneumatic railways popping up in Dublin, London, and Paris. In London, they had this thing called the pneumatic dispatch system. It was meant for parcels, but it was big enough to carry people. In fact, in 1865, the Duke of Buckingham took a ride through it. I'm really a duke crawling into what's basically a giant mail tube for a joyride. It's almost like they found this tech and were like, dude, check it out, we can actually fit in here. In 1867 in New York, they had the Beach Pneumatic Transit. And it wasn't just little mail tubes, we're talking about a legit underground transit system. And this was 37 years before the New York City subway as we know it today. But I think the interesting thing about this is when you look at the photos of these old pneumatic systems, they look insanely advanced for their time. And then you look at our modern subway that came after, and it just looks like we took a massive step backwards. As if we forgot to do something amazing and had to start all over. And the official story is that all these tunnels were dug out by hand, with basic tools like shovels and wheelbarrows. But let's think about that for a second. In 2018, Seattle spent 6 years and $80 million on a tunnel boring machine to dig a single tunnel downtown. And they're telling us that in the 1860s, they carved out entire networks of tunnels under major cities with, what, pickaxes and elbow grease? Something's not adding up. And when you look at the photos of these old tunnels, they don't look like they were freshly dug. You could say ancient, like they were being uncovered rather than built. It's almost as if these 19th century engineers.
It's just fascinating how unsophisticated these lies are. These lies that we, I don't know if they're lies, but more like omissions or untruths.
I don't even know how unsophisticated it is because, like, I mean, well, whether you want to label it as unsophisticated or not, like, clearly it worked. No
Yeah,
one, is going, oh, this is what we have now.
we didn't.
It's all forgotten. It's not, like, part of common knowledge or common history at all.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah, it worked. They got what they wanted. It's a secret. They get to do whatever they want, go as far as they want, and no one knows about it. So they can use it for their benefit and not, for people.
Engineers found something old and tried to get it working again. And interestingly, there are accounts of tunnel boring machines being used as far back as 1846. A guy named Frederick Beaumont supposedly came up with one during the Second Industrial Revolution. But when you look at what they claim these machines could do compared to our modern tunnel borers, it's kind of hard to believe. It really makes you think, what if these weren't new inventions at all? What if they were rediscoveries of much older tech? And this gets into some other bizarre phenomenon that's reported all around the world. It's called the hum. So what is it exactly? It's this low frequency sound that some people hear, but others can't. It's like a low rumble or a droning sound. Supposedly, only about 2% of people in affected areas can hear it, And each person hears it at a slightly different frequency, usually between 32 and 80 hertz. And that's pretty low. I mean, most of us can't even hear sounds that low. And some people might just say, oh, it's tinnitus or something. But it gets weird because people report that it's worse indoors and outdoors. Some people can even move away from it like it has a specific range. One person in Taos said they could hear it within a 30-mile radius. It's almost as if there's some kind of source, but nobody can pinpoint exactly what or where it is. So what's causing it? Well, some researchers think that it might be related to industrial equipment or high-pressure gas pipelines. But there are people that believe the hum might be connected to secret underground activities. I mean, think about it. With all these underground bases and tunnels, what if some of that machinery, some type of boring tech, or who knows what else they've got down there, is causing this sound? Interestingly, the hum seems to avoid publicity. There are reports of it subsiding when they press coverage. Almost like whatever's causing it can be turned off or redirected when too many people start asking questions. Well, let's keep going deeper. There's something called Continuity of Government Programs, or COG for short. Now on the surface, it sounds pretty legit, but it's about making sure the government can keep running if something catastrophic happens. This COG program has underground components. We're talking about massive, fully equipped bunkers that could house key government officials for months, maybe even years. And these are real places, just like Raven Rock, like we were talking about. Many believe these aren't just for emergencies, that there's a shadow government already operating out of these facilities. A whole parallel power structure making decisions that affect us all, hidden away deep underground, a literal deep state. And there's definitely more to this, from global surveillance operations to bioweapon development, human trafficking, and even cloning facilities, all occurring underneath the surface.
It just sounds like it'll be boring and desolate and cold down there. Why would you want to be on the ground for extended periods?
I guess because you can you can do whatever you want down there. You can work on projects. You can build your bunkers. Who knows? You have your secret society meetings. You build your own society down there. And also, supposedly, there is, I don't know if you want to call it a legend or a myth, that there are actual, maybe different species of human,
No human.
but there are, people that live inside the earth, not necessarily in these tunnels per se, but that there are parts of the earth where it's, it's like paradise. You can go inside and, animals and plants and beautiful and this and that. And it's like a perfect world and, fairies and stuff. So who knows about that?
Sounds like a scene in a movie.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound real at all.
It doesn't sound real because we're used to crap. That's our reality. Yeah, so there's that.
Where'd
Like
you
that.
get that?
Huh?
How did you find that out?
Well, if you're looking for it, it's there. You could call like Agartha, or you could even just look at like, what is in the center of the earth, like secret, I don't know, secret cities and places in the center of the earth, and see what you can come up with. But there are a lot of books out there, and even people who've made videos about this. Not that they've traveled, but it's just like people who have like researched the topic, So people will talk about it, hey, look, this is where the Anunnaki moved to, they went underground or whatever. This is, there are people who are a more advanced society lives in the center of the earth, and we're on top out here. And there's some I don't know, there's some, I think it was like maybe written in like 200 years. I think it was like in the 1800s or something like that. And there's like some book about some guy who wrote about this place. And some people say it's fiction. Other people will say, no, this is like his actual biography. So who knows what's true or not. But there's information out there about it. And there are people who've like dug in deeper. So I'm kind of giving you all this like rambling, whatever surface stuff that I've sort of come across over the years. But if you really want to learn about that, there's information out there. You should look up Agartha. Agartha.
Is it a book or a movie?
That's the place. That's what it's called.
Oh.
The center of the earth, where like the advanced civilization is.
Agartha, according to Google, is a legendary kingdom that is said to be located in the inner surface of the earth. It is sometimes related to belief in a hollow earth and is a popular subject in esotericism. So it sounds like a niche idea.
Yeah.
It's not widely adopted. I think that's part of what that's mostly what this video is about.
He's probably going to get into that. And what I'm thinking is, I know to us normies, right? Like we look at stuff and we're just like, oh, that's a cool fairy tale. Sounds great, but it's not real. It's fun to believe in or, to talk about, but come on, we live in the real world and we have to pay bills. But to be honest, I feel like these deep state people, I think they take a lot of these legends seriously. And I think they want the regulars like us to believe that they're all myths. So I think that these people are really, they're going after stuff like this. Maybe they're digging through because they're looking for Agartha. Or maybe they found it. Or whatever. Just like how they're looking, they're always trying to find artifacts, legendary artifacts. And I mean, Billy Carson would attest to this, and he says that a lot of what what he is seeing the government come up with, especially like within NASA, he'll be like, look, this was in the tablets, the Emerald tablets. So they obviously took a lot of what they're trying to come up with, and they're trying to replicate what the ancients already created.
All right, let's go back to the show. Takes it a little while to get going. It's like an old car.
It's like the 2000s.
Yeah. It's like dial up.
And occulted.
There we go.
We can say for certain that in the modern day, there are indeed underground cities, bunkers, and tunnels that are hidden. Some we know about, others are so classified that even mentioning them probably gets you on some government watch list. But is this just a recent thing? Like, did people in the last 300 years suddenly think to build some underground cool lairs, or is there something more to all those myths and legends about advanced civilizations beneath the earth? Well, the ancient Greeks, if they even existed, were obsessed with the idea of an underworld. Plato, for example, in his dialogue Phaedo, he doesn't just describe the underworld as some vague, spooky place. He talks about a whole system of underground rivers, vast hollows, and caverns beneath the Earth's surface. He even describes how these underground waterways connected to the oceans that we see on the surface. He goes on to talk about Tartarus. And this is interesting because in Greek mythology, Tartarus isn't just some vague part of the underworld. Plato describes it as a massive cavity that goes right through the earth, like the heart of this whole underground system, where all those rivers that we just talked about come together and then flow out again. And it's not just a few caves. Apparently there's an entire world beneath our feet. Plato's description of Tartarus goes beyond just a place of punishment. He presents it as a realm with its own geography, rivers, and complex systems. The name Tartarus bears a striking similarity to Tartaria. And it's an interesting connection, because it could be a possibility that Tartarus in Greek mythology could be preserving memories of an actual underground civilization. According to Plato, the neutral go to the underworld temporarily before returning to Earth. The wicked are cast into Tartarus permanently. The virtuous ascend to what he calls the true surface of the Earth, a place of incredible beauty and advancement. What if these aren't just metaphors, but possibly distorted historical accounts? The underworld journey of neutral souls could represent the common experience of surface dwellers. The permanent exile to Tartarus might reflect ancient advanced societies seeking refuge underground following major cataclysms. And it's not just Plato. Homer, in the Odyssey, describes the entrance to the underworld as a physical place that Odysseus actually visits. It's not just some metaphorical afterlife, but a real location with its own geography and inhabitants. Another account comes from the Greek historian Xenophon in his work Anabasis. While not specifically mentioning underground cities, he describes the people of Armenia living in underground homes. Quote, "Their houses were underground, with a mouth like that of a well, but spacious below. And while entrances were tunneled down for the beast of burden, the human inhabitants descended by a ladder." End quote. The ancient Greek geographer Strabo also mentions underground dwellings in his work Geography. He describes the troglodytes, cave-dwelling peoples in various parts of the world, including areas in the Caucasus and North Africa. Then you've got Virgil's Aeneid, where Aeneas takes a trip to the underworld through a cave near Naples. Virgil describes it as a bustling underground city, with its own laws, judges, and different regions for different types of souls. The idea of hell is depicted as a fiery underground realm. It's not just in Greek mythology that we see this concept of an underworld. Tons of cultures have similar ideas, and they almost always place these realms beneath the Earth's surface. Think about it. In Christianity, hell is often described as being in the depths, or the pit.
I think what I struggle with is separating art from reality, because history, the way it's presented, is it's like snapshots or moments in time. It's never really like the entire thing, right? The narrative is subjective. It's based on whoever is telling the story and their research and their understanding of history. So when I'm looking at these images, who's to tell that any of them, like any one of these images, is not art? Just like we do art right now, if 1,000 years from now someone discovers our art, they might think it's what was real at the time.
Well, I think this is just their belief. That's why they made art from it. Or that's just what they have in their head about what this is. I don't know if they necessarily lived this. So, I mean.
All right.
Yeah, huh?
Let's continue the show. As soon as it starts playing. Are you tired? You're yawning.
Islamic traditions talk about Jahannam, which is also depicted as a place deep underground. Even in Norse mythology, you've got hell, which is where we get the word from, is described as being down or below. What if these descriptions aren't just about creating a scary image for sinners, but instead they're based on some kind of ancient knowledge or experience? It would make more sense if these underworld realms weren't just mythical places, but memories of actual underground civilizations. Maybe not all Islamic traditions talk about Jahannam, which is also depicted as a place deep underground. Even in Norse mythology, you've got Hell, which is where we get the word from, is described as being down or below. What if these descriptions aren't just about creating a scary image for sinners, but instead they're based on some kind of ancient knowledge or experience? It would make more sense if these underworld realms weren't just mythical places, but memories of actual underground civilizations. Maybe not all of them were advanced utopias. Some could have been harsh places, populated by exiles or criminals. Over time, as the memory of these places faded, they might have morphed in our stories into realms of punishment and torment. There are other famous hellmouth paintings from the Renaissance period, depicting massive, gaping maws representing the entrance to hell. These artistic representations have roots in ancient folklore, where caves and openings in the earth were often seen as portals to the underworld. Such mouth caves appear in myths and legends across various cultures, symbolizing passages to hidden realms beneath the surface. In Irish folklore, numerous tales speak of underground realms and passageways. The Cave of Crohan, also known as Ireland's Gate to Hell, features prominently in Celtic mythology. Legend says strange creatures would emerge from this ancient cave and roam the Earth's surface. Medieval Irish literature tells of knights and saints embarking on pilgrimages to a cave on Station Island in County Donegal. These spiritual journeys allegedly took them into the Earth's interior, to a place of purgatory where souls were cleansed. In County Down, Northern Ireland, local myth speaks of tunnels leading to the subterranean home of the Tuatha Dé Danann, the mythical race credited with introducing Druidism to Ireland before retreating underground. In Norse cosmology, the world is divided into 9 realms. Several of these realms are associated with the underworld or underground spaces. Niflheim, this is one of the primordial realms, a place of ice and mist, often associated with the underworld. It's considered to be located in the lowest level of the Norse universe. Then there's Svartalheim, the realm of the dwarves, also called Dark Elves in some sources. This underground subterranean world is where skilled craftsmen forge magical items and weapons for the gods. Mimir's Well, located beneath one of Yggdrasil's roots. This well contains wisdom and knowledge. Odin sacrificed an eye to drink from it. The Hall of Sindri, a golden hall located underground where some of the righteous dead are said to dwell after Ragnarok. Loki's Cave. After being bound by the gods, Loki is said to be imprisoned in a cave deep underground until Ragnarok. These underground realms in Norse mythology aren't just places of the dead. They're often sources of power, wisdom, and magical craftsmanship. The dwarves, master craftsmen who live underground, create some of the most powerful artifacts in Norse myths, including Thor's hammer and Odin's spear. In Hindu cosmology, we find the concept of Patala, which is described as a whole series of subterranean realms. But interestingly, this realm is said to be inhabited by the Naga. The Nagas are described as serpent beings, often depicted as half human, half snake. In some texts, they're said to be incredibly advanced, but technological and spiritual knowledge far beyond that of the surface dwellers. Their underground cities are described as having palaces adorned with jewels, advanced technology, and a quality of life that rivals or even surpasses that of the gods. The Bhagavata Purana's description of the 7 lower regions, called Vilas Vargas, or subterranean heavens, bears a striking resemblance to other mythical underground realms like Shambhala or Agartha. These Patala regions are portrayed as plains or levels beneath the earth, supposedly more opulent and advanced than even the celestial realms above. Life in these subterranean worlds is described as one of unparalleled pleasure, wealth, and luxury, free from any form of distress, much like the utopian descriptions of Shambhala. Interestingly, Patala has no sunlight. Instead, the darkness is dispelled by the radiance of jewels worn by its inhabitants, suggesting an alternative form of energy or technology. Perhaps more intriguingly, Patala is said to be free from old age, sweat, and disease. In China, we find Diyu, the underground realm of the dead. Interestingly, Diyu is described as a complex bureaucracy, mirroring the imperial Chinese government. It's a place where souls are judged, rehabilitated, and eventually reincarnated. The emphasis here seems to be on order and structure, even in the afterlife. Then we have the Mayan underworld, Xibalba, ruled by death gods and filled with all sorts of trials and dangers. But in Mayan myths, heroes sometimes journey to Xibalba and return. This suggests that the Maya saw the underworld as a real place that it could be visited and returned from, not just a metaphorical realm of the dead. In ancient Sumerian mythology, the underworld, known as Kur or Irkala, was ruled by Inanna's sister, Ereshkigal. And this underworld was not just the realm of the dead either, but a multi-layered, highly structured domain. The myth of Inanna's descent is interesting because in order to reach the underworld, Inanna must pass through 7 gates. At each gate, she's required to remove a piece of her clothing or jewelry, symbols of her power and identity. This process mirrors the stages of initiation in many secret societies, where the initiate must gradually strip away their old identity to be reborn into a new understanding. By the time Inanna reaches the innermost part of the underworld, she is completely naked and powerless. This idea of an underworld with multiple layers, each requiring a specific sacrifice or transformation to enter, is remarkably similar to the graduated levels of initiation found in mystery schools and secret societies throughout history. Inanna is then killed by Ereshkigal and hung on a hook, only to be resurrected 3 days later. This death and rebirth cycle is a central theme in many initiatory rites, symbolizing the death of the old self and the emergence of the initiated enlightened being. The Egyptian underworld, known as Duat, was a vast mysterious region that held secrets of transformation and rebirth. One of the most fascinating aspects of Duat is its geography. According to the Book of the Dead and other ancient texts, Duat was a series of caverns and chambers beneath the earth, divided into various regions and levels. This underground realm was said to be traversed by the sun god Ra during the night hours, in a journey that symbolized death and rebirth. A part of this journey, there was the concept of hidden chambers. These were secret areas within Duat that contained special knowledge and power. Only those who knew the correct spells and had the proper understanding could access these chambers. Zoroaster's Cave, a sacred site in ancient Persian tradition, is said to be where the prophet Zoroaster received his divine revelations. This cavern, nestled in the mountains of ancient Persia, served as a gateway between the physical and spiritual realms. Within its depths, some traditions suggest that the gate was not merely a physical location, but a metaphysical space where the boundaries between dimensions thinned, allowing Zoroaster to access higher planes of consciousness. This subterranean sanctuary became the birthplace of a religion that would influence spiritual thought for millennia, embodying the concept that profound wisdom and cosmic truths often emerge from the hidden depths of the earth. When we consider the extensive underground tombs and chambers the Egyptians built, like the labyrinthine structure beneath the Hawara pyramid that Herodotus described as having 3,000 rooms, it's not hard to imagine that these underworld myths might have been inspired by real subterranean explorations. Herodotus claimed to have partially explored himself. He described it as follows, quote, "I have seen this building, and it is beyond my power to describe. It must have cost more in labor and money than all the walls and public works of the Greeks put together. Though no one would deny that the temples at Ephesus and Samos are remarkable buildings. The pyramids too are astonishing structures, each one of them equal to many of the most ambitious works of Greece. but the labyrinth surpasses them. It has 12 covered courts, 6 in a row facing north, 6 south, range exactly fronting the gates of the other. Inside, the building is of 2 stories and contains 3,000 rooms, of which half are underground, and the other half directly above them. I was taken through the rooms in the upper story, so what I shall say of them is from my own observation. But the underground ones I can speak of only from report, because the Egyptians in charge refused to let me see them, as they contain the tombs of the kings who built the labyrinth, and also the tombs of the sacred crocodiles." End quote. What's striking about these myths is how detailed and structured these underground realms are. These are fully realized worlds with their own geography, inhabitants, and rules. The Naga of Hindu myths present an interesting possibility. What if there really are advanced beings living beneath the earth? These myths show that the idea of complex inhabited underground realms isn't unique to any one culture. A phenomenon spanning continents and millennia, which begs the question, why did cultures all over the world, many of which supposedly had no contact with each other, all come up with similar ideas about vast populated worlds beneath our feet? Most of you probably know of Derinkuyu in Cappadocia, Turkey. This underground city could house up to 20,000 people and goes 18 stories deep. It had everything from living quarters to storage rooms, wells, and even wineries. The crazy part is that it was only rediscovered
What just happened?
Did it just stop?
Yeah, just
It's got to load.
So, what do you think?
I think, well,
discovered in 1963 when a man renovating his house stumbled upon a mysterious room behind a wall. It's also connected to other underground cities in the region by miles of tunnels. Some of these tunnels are unexplored to this day. The known network is vast, but there are hints that what we've discovered might only be a fraction of what's down there. Malta's underground world is just as mysterious. The Hypogeum of House Saflini, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is a subterranean structure dating back to about 4000 BCE. It's a complex of halls, chambers, and passages hewn out of solid limestone. It goes 3 stories deep and is remarkably well preserved. The acoustic properties of the oracle room with the Hypogeum are particularly intriguing. Voices are amplified and reverberate throughout the structure, and some researchers suggest that this might have been used for ancient ritual purposes, possibly even to induce altered states of consciousness. Interestingly, Malta's underground has legends of giants. One particularly fascinating story relates to the discovery of enormous bones in the Hypogeum and other Maltese caves. In the 1600s, the historian Georgius Antonius Chantar wrote of enormous teeth and bones found in these underground chambers, which locals attributed to an ancient race of giants. Similar reports continued into the 20th century. In 1902, workmen allegedly discovered a long chamber filled with giant skeletons and ancient artifacts. Even more interesting, there are tales of secret chambers within the Hypogeum that are off limits to the public, rumored to contain evidence of these giant beings. Perhaps the most captivating tale associated with Malta's Hypogeum is the account of Lois Jessup, a British embassy employee. In the 1940s, Jessup claimed to have ventured into a restricted area of the Hypogeum. From a narrow ledge, she reportedly observed about 20 giant beings, each 20 to 25 feet tall, emerging from a lower opening. These entities, moving in single file, allegedly turned towards Jessup and beckoned to her with outstretched arms. The encounter was cut short when Jessup's companions pulled her back, and days later, a local newspaper supposedly reported that a schoolmaster and 30 students exploring the same area had disappeared without a trace, their rope mysteriously cut. For weeks after, cries were said to be heard from the underground, though no one was ever found. The Wieliczka salt mine in southern Poland, stretching for 287 kilometers and reaching depths of 327 meters. This underground labyrinth has been in continuous operation since the 13th century, making it one of the world's oldest salt mines. What sets Wieliczka apart is its transformation from a mere industrial site into an underground wonderland. Over the centuries, miners have carved out chambers, corridors, and even entire chapels from the salt. The mine's crown jewel is the Chapel of St. Kinga, a vast underground church where everything from chandeliers to altars is made of salt. The mine also houses underground lakes, where the water is more saline than the Dead Sea. Statues of historical and mythical figures, all carved from salt, populate the chambers. One of the most impressive is a sculpture of Pope John Paul II, honoring the Polish-born pontiff. The underground city of Naours, located in northern France, is a hidden marvel dating back to the Middle Ages. This subterranean refuge consists of 28 galleries and 300 chambers spread across 3 kilometers, capable of sheltering up to 3,000 people. Originally created as a place of refuge during times of war and invasion, Naours saw its most recent significant use during World War I. The city features an intricate network of passages, living quarters, and even a chapel. Orvieto, in central France, sits above a vast network of caves, tunnels, and wells, some dating back to Etruscan times over 2,500 years ago. This underground complex served multiple purposes throughout history. The Etruscans used it for storage, water collection, and possibly religious rituals. During medieval times, it provided escape routes and shelter during sieges. One of the most impressive features is the St. Patrick's Well, a 16th century engineering masterpiece. 2 spiral staircases, designed for donkeys carrying water vessels, wind around the central shaft without intersecting, allowing simultaneous ascent and descent. The underground city also includes pigeon breeding caves, used to raise birds for food and communication. Many noble families had their own private caves beneath their palaces, some which were used as workshops or for olive oil production. The Longyu Caves, discovered in 1992 in China's Zhejiang province, remain one of archaeology's most perplexing mysteries. These massive artificial caverns were accidentally uncovered when local villagers drained a pond, revealing a vast underground complex. The caves, carved into solid siltstone, cover an area of over 30,000 square meters with heights up to 30 meters. What's so baffling is the precision of their construction. The walls are smooth and uniform, with tool marks still visible, suggesting advanced excavation techniques. Even more puzzling, there are no historical records of their creation or purpose. The Hopi people of the southwestern United States have a rich tradition of underground worlds and beings. According to their legends, the current world we live in is the 4th world, and the previous 3 were destroyed by various catastrophes. During these times of destruction, the Ant people played a very important role. The Ant people, or Anusino in the Hopi language, are described as industrious, hardworking beings who live in elaborate underground cities. When the First World was destroyed by fire, and later when the Second World met its end through freezing, the Ant people provided sanctuary to the Hopi in their subterranean realm. These underground shelters are described as vast caverns, warm and safe, where the Hopi were taught agriculture, food preservation, and other survival skills. The layout of traditional Hopi kivas, underground chambers used for spiritual ceremonies, is said to mimic the form of these ancient ant chambers. In Mexican folklore, natives of the Chobriand Islands believe that their ant
Descended from aliens. Why they gotta be descended from aliens? So
You don't like aliens.
aliens is so dismissive.
ancestors had come from a subterranean land through a cavern hole called Abukula. There are also legends that tells of a cave in a mountain 5 miles south of Ojinaga, and that Mexico is possessed by devilish creatures who came from inside the earth. The legend of Aztlan, the Aztecs' mythical homeland, centers on Chicomostoc. Aztec tradition believes that their ancient ancestors once lived in a white or bright land called Aztlan, and that they emerged from ancestors had come from a subterranean land through a cavern hole called Abucula. There are also legends that tells of a cave in a mountain 5 miles south of Ojinaga, and that Mexico is possessed by devilish creatures who came from inside the earth. The legend of Aztlan, the Aztecs' mythical homeland, centers on Chicomostoc. Aztec tradition believes that their ancient ancestors once lived in a white or bright land called Aztlan, and that they emerged from 7 caverns. These caves, located within a hill called Cojoacan, were believed to be the dwelling place of the Aztec ancestors. The 7 Nahuatl tribes reportedly emerged from these subterranean chambers before settling in Aztlan proper, which was described as an island in a lake. This subterranean land of Tlilapa, or Mictlan, a happy land governed by Quetzalcoatl and his lieutenant Totec, the same land from which he and the Toltecs had come in ancient times. In Native American lore, tribes trace their origin to subterranean realms. The Mandan people believe their ancestors emerged from an underground land through a cave north of the Missouri River.
Man down.
Apache folklore speaks of a tunnel in Arizona leading to an inner earth inhabited by a mysterious tribe. Iroquois tradition holds that their forebears came from a world beneath the surface. Hopi elders maintain that Sibapu entrance in the Grand Canyon connects to the underworld. South American indigenous groups share similar beliefs. Brazilian Indians along the Paraíba River claim their ancestors emerged from an underground land, with many still residing within the earth. Inca legend states their forefathers came from caves east of Cusco, Peru. These narratives from diverse cultures share a common thread, the belief that their ancestors originated from within the earth itself, suggesting a widespread and enduring concept of inner earth origins in indigenous cosmologies. In the Middle Ages, an ancient German myth held that some mountains located between Eisenach and Gotha hold a portal to the inner earth. The location is said to be Hörselberg, a mountain between Eisenach and Gotha in Germany, and was believed to house a mysterious underground realm. Local legend spoke of a cavern called Horselloch, from which strange sounds emanated. Rushing water, moans, and even diabolical laughter was heard. Some thought it was an entrance to purgatory, while others believed it led to the court of Venus, the pagan goddess of love. The most famous tale associated with the Hörselberg is that of Tannhäuser, a medieval minnesinger. The legend tells of Tannhäuser entering the mountain, lured by Venus herself. He spent 7 years in her underground palace, indulging in revelry and passion. Eventually overcome with guilt and longing for the mortal world, Tannhäuser left to seek absolution. Tannhäuser's quest for forgiveness led him to Pope Urban IV, who declared his sin too great to be pardoned. Despairing, Tannhäuser returned to Venus's realm. Days later, the Pope's staff miraculously blossomed, signifying God's willingness to forgive. Messengers were sent to find Tannhäuser, but it was too late. He had already re-entered the mountain, never to be seen again. The legends of the underground Chud, also known as the Wide-Eyed Chud, are prevalent in regions inhabited by the Finno-Ugric peoples, particularly where they encountered Slavic newcomers.
Ugly thing.
These stories often describe the Chud retreating underground to avoid submission to the White Tsar, symbolizing the expanding Russian state. In some areas, these tales intertwine with the legends of the Belavaldia, a mythical happy land from Old Believer folklore. Even in recent times, locals in various parts of Russia have pointed out caves and holes in the ground, claiming them as entry points where the Chud descended. One such story from the Altai region goes, when the White Tsar came to Altai to fight and the white birch blossomed in our land, the Chud did not want to stay under the White Tsar. They went underground and blocked the passages with stones. These legends often include a promise of the Chud's return. bringing with them great knowledge and treasures when a happy time arrives. Most chewed stand between 4 and 5 feet tall and are well proportioned. Though divided into male and female, they have an androgynous look to them and appear as children of 10 to 12 years old, though a few of the older ones do sport beards. Some of them do have eyes with very small, light-colored irises, for which they earn the moniker white-eyed, but others have eyes with large pupils the color of coal